This is Breezing Through, and I'm Emily. So today we're back on week 2 of doing these little mini projects before I get to the full reveal of this section of my son's room. So last week I did the slide. Again, so fun, so cool. I'm so glad I did that. And now anyone else can build their own slide like this. You can vary by length, however you want to do that. And today we're going to talk about bookshelves. So I think I've seen other people do this, but again, people don't do the full tutorial, which drives me insane. So these are the kind of shelves that are about 5 inches deep. And the problem with those kinds of shelves is you can't put a bigger book on them. And we had just floating shelves that I'd put in my son's room, and we had bigger books that were not staying on them. And so I wanted to do the ones that had the sides and the rails on them. And again, you see these everywhere. They're all over the internet. You can go on Amazon, you can go on Wayfair, you can get them everywhere. But I wanted a tutorial on how to make them. It's very, very similar to when I made the umbrella holder multiple years ago for my parents' garage. This is super similar. So you just need a brad nailer, some wood glue, and then the pieces that we're going to use. So if you are newer here, you may recognize the boards that I'm using. If you're newer here, the boards that I'm using for this project are actually recycled from a previous project. So I built a headboard for the guest bed, I don't know, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Must have been 3 or 4 years ago, actually, because my son is 2.5. So I was definitely not pregnant. So we're going to say 4 years ago. And I was disassembling it, and I kept thinking of I wanted to do something with these boards in his room again. I wanted to recycle them because I hate throwing stuff out. I always love to upcycle things. And at first I was like, I could do another like upholstered like panels somewhere in here. But the more I've thought about it, the more I was thinking about these shelves and how I could make these shelves so that the books wouldn't come off and we had lots of space. So I decided to use them for this. I'm going to cut them down to a better size because they're 5 feet long each at the moment, and then cut the sides, and then I'm going to have the railing for the front. And I am going to paint them. Don't come at me. I know it's wood, but for the vibe I'm going for this space, I want it all to be the same color. So they are being painted. And you'll get a sneak peek of the color of the rest of the reading nook. So let's get started. So first I needed to take apart the headboard from the guest bed so I could use the 1x6 boards for the bookshelves. These were screwed together with just pieces of plywood that I had cut down. And then I needed to take off all of the upholstery. So that required a upholstery staple remover and a lot of time. So I sat around watching shows and pulling the staples out. And a lot of times I double stapled because I would staple the batting on to keep the foam on, and then I stapled the fabric on top. And for the most part, I was able to get all of the staples out. There were a few pieces that were still in the boards, and that's why I'm using them for these shelves. The sides that have the staples left in them are going to be the underside of the shelves. So they can't hurt anybody, they can't hurt any books, but I'm still reusing the wood. Once I was done with that, I then cut all of the boards down. So I did 4 shelves that are 36 inches long and 4 shelves that are 15 inches long because I'm doing a set of shelves along one wall and then another set of shelves part of a wall. It's the same wall that the ladder is on for the slide platform because I wanted to leave a solid wall with nothing on it so that there was a place to sit, making it a true reading nook. So I cut 4 36-inch pieces, 4 15-inch pieces, 16 3.5-inch pieces. And then for the fronts of the shelves, I actually used these leftover 1x3 boards that I had from when I made the slats for my son's bed. You can check out that video. But I just used this leftover wood that I had. And so I cut those down and I took 36 inches and subtracted 1.5 inches for the side pieces, which gets you to 34.5 inches. So I cut 4 of those. And then for the 15-inch shelves, I subtracted 1.5 inches from that and got 13.5 inches. And so I cut 4 pieces down for that for the front of the smaller shelves as well. Once everything was cut, I then did 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of paint. The color I'm using here is Seed to Shining Sea by Benjamin Moore. It's the same color as the walls in the reading nook, which I'm going to paint in a minute. Now, if I was using fresh wood that had not been recycled, I probably would have stained these, but because I'm using recycled wood that had gouges in it and had some staples left in it, I decided to paint them instead, and I didn't want it to be contrasting. So I'm painting them the same color as the walls. When I was done painting, it was time for assembly. So I took one shelf and two small pieces and a front piece. The two small 3.5-inch pieces I put on the ends of each shelf and then just used my brad nailer to secure them to the shelf. And then I took the front piece and secured that to the very top of the side pieces, so there was a gap at the bottom of each shelf. As long as all of your measurements are right, this is actually a really easy shelf to assemble. My biggest hangup was how I was going to attach these to the wall, because I didn't really want to use my router to carve out a spot to hang these on a nail. I wanted something that was a little bit more beginner friendly for this set of shelves so that someone else could do them as well who might not have a router. So what I did instead is I went to my local Ace Hardware and I found these brackets. They're just L brackets. They can hold a pretty decent load. So for the 36-inch shelves, I used 1.5-inch brackets. And then for the 15-inch shelves, I used the 1-inch brackets. I started off by securing the brackets to the shelves. I figured that was the better way to do it because then I could mark where to screw in each shelf on the wall without having to move stuff around as much. Once the shelves were all ready to go, it was time to paint the reading nook because I wasn't going to attach shelves without having painted first because that would have been a pain in the butt. So I went ahead and I painted everything. I cut in all the corners. There are quite a few corners here, and then painted the 3 sides. I did create a line on the left-hand side because that wall continues down all the way to my son's bed, and I don't want this color to continue all the way down. I want it to clearly mark where the reading nook is. So I made that line with painting tape and then again painted the whole thing. Again, I used the same color, Sea to Shining Sea by Benjamin Moore, and I did 2 coats of paint. Once the paint was all dry, it was time to hang the shelves. So I took the first shelf and I was hanging it as low as possible, and I put it resting on the baseboard actually. I made sure it was level, and then I marked where I needed to drill the holes. And because I'm not drilling into studs, because the studs would not be centered for this, I used drywall anchors. So I put those in first, and then I secured each bracket with screws into the drywall anchors. And I repeated that for all 4 shelves. I only did the drywall anchors for the 36-inch shelves because the 15-inch shelves are being attached to plywood. I'm not showing them in this video because I'm honestly not done with them yet because I didn't cut enough pieces for them. So those will be shown in the final reveal of the reading nook and the slide platform next week. I will admit I did not measure the space between each shelf. I just eyeballed it, but I did make sure that they all lined up, and then I secured each shelf above it until I'd secured all 4 shelves. So this is about 2 small shelves worth of books. This is not all of the books my son has, and these shelves aren't even packed full. I have plenty of space on all of them, and I will probably be adding more books after I've gotten the 15-inch shelves hung and I've figured out exactly what books are going where, because we still have a lot of books that need somewhere to go. All right, so what do you think? Hopefully that's helpful. And if you're looking to make these shelves, they're really not that hard to make, and these boards are not that expensive, especially if you're doing only a couple at a time. Obviously, I did 10, actually no, I did 14. I did 14 of these because I had the boards. Again, I'm not going to just waste these boards. I'm going to reuse them for something. And this was a great use of these boards. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.